Hi, this is Jill. Welcome to the Life After podcast, where we talk about moving from surviving to thriving. This podcast is for anyone who wants to learn, grow, to get tips and tricks about how to inspire you to become the person you want to be, and get clarity about exactly what you want in life. This is also the place to be if you want to be lifted up and encouraged to go out and do great work in the world. What has happened in your past does not have to define who you are today or who you become in the future. And in fact, what has happened to you in the past should, can, and will shape who you want to be. This podcast is also about bringing people together. It's about connecting all of you, helping you identify where you are in your process. What do you need to feel more engaged and alive in your life? More connected to the people in your circle? This is a community of those who are looking to improve our world in the way that is most meaningful to them. Why is this important? Because how we show up really matters. Bringing more service, kindness, and love into the world is critical right now. Our quotes for this episode are, "Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means," by Ronald Reagan. And, "The quality of our lives depends not on whether or not we have conflicts, but on how we respond to them," by Crum. Lastly, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen," by Winston Churchill. In this episode, we are going to talk about conflict and conflict styles. Conflict is inevitable, so understanding it and being more willing to effectively, kindly, safely, and courageously lean into resolving it allows for being more proactive when it happens. The thing about conflict is that we are so often afraid to engage in any kind of conflict because most of us view it as yelling and screaming and fighting. However, conflict is really just two people with different ideas or perspectives. We can't ever completely eliminate conflict from our lives, so I'll be giving you some ideas on how to manage it more effectively. We'll put together all the parts, including the elements, as well as the causes of conflict and conflict styles. Don't be afraid of conflict. There is nothing to fear when having a difference of opinion with another person. In my experience, two reasonable people who are kind and caring, and in most cases, like or love each other, are able and willing to work through issues and talk things out. You can always have a better understanding of how to talk to someone and work through issues or conflict when you also understand the root cause of conflict, as well as that there are different conflict styles. Later in this episode, we are going to reference the Craybill Conflict Styles Inventory that I learned when taking part in the Rural Development Initiative, or RDI, leadership class a few years ago. There are some real benefits when you engage in a healthy exchange of conflict. Some of those benefits are that motivation and creativity can increase when looking to solve a problem. It can establish better long-term relationships as you work together to address an issue. It's an opportunity to change something that is bothersome. It allows for growth, both personally and professionally. We can attain new information that allows us to explore new ideas, and the understanding of others increases. So much conflict comes from miscommunication. Remember from our last episode, we learned how complicated communication can be with all of its elements? Here's a quick recap. Communication is based upon a message being sent on the one hand and the message being received on the other. This can be complicated by barriers and filters. Furthermore, communication can be more effective when the 8 active listening techniques are utilized. And finally, communication can be less effective when the 12 active listening blocks are occurring. Check out the micro episodes on active listening techniques as well as active listening blocks for more details. While miscommunication can exacerbate conflict, there are also specific causes for why conflict happens. Therefore, the underlying reason behind why a conflict is occurring is important to know. If you don't have that information, then it can be much more difficult to resolve any conflict. According to RDI, there are 5 causes of conflict, and they are the relationship is the first. This is strong emotions, poor or miscommunication, misperceptions or stereotypes, and past history are all indicators. The second is data, which is characterized by misinformation or lack of information, different interpretation of data, and differing views on what's relevant. The third is interests. This is the perceived or actual competition and any substantive, procedural, or psychological interests that might be involved. The fourth is structural, which focuses on unequal control, access or distribution of resources and information, unequal power and authority, environmental factors that hinder cooperation, and time constraints. And finally, there's values, which is a difference criteria for evaluating ideas or behavior. It's also different ways of life, ideology, and religion. We're not going to discuss them all right now. I just wanted to highlight this idea so that you have the ability to recognize the nature of the conflict you may be experiencing. Without knowing the right cause, you'll have a much harder time working through it. Also, some of these causes of conflict are more easily resolved. Those are data, interests, and relationships. Now, everyone has a style for how they react or respond to conflict. The Craybill Conflict Style Inventory is a fantastic tool to learn about your natural tendency and response to conflict. I highly recommend checking out the Craybill website and also taking their test to find out your personal conflict styles. I've put their link in the show notes. According to Craybill, everyone has 2 different approaches to manage conflict. There is the way you respond to conflict when you feel calm, referred to as calm, and there is the way you respond to conflict when you are upset or frustrated, called storm. It's possible that your style of responding to conflict in calm may not necessarily be the same as your style of responding to conflict when you're in storm. Now, whenever we experience conflict, there are 2 important factors occurring that determine our position or the style that we use. The first is that people have their own agenda or expectations for what they want to come out of the interaction. The second is the relationship that's involved. Either the relationship can be very strong and you're really committed to preserving it, and therefore that's the piece or style that you use. And sometimes the relationship factor is weaker in terms of the conflict outcome, and one cares more about what they want than maintaining the relationship. Finally, there are these 5 styles or techniques in how you respond to conflict. Our individual style is impacted by our agendas, the relationship, whether we are in calm or in storm, and where our focus is during the conflict. Agenda and relationship are closely integrated into the 5 styles, as we'll see in their descriptions. It's really fascinating to know what your styles are, as well as having a feeling for what the styles of the people that you are close to or that you spend a lot of time with are. So here are the 5 styles. The first is directing. And in this style, there's a high emphasis placed on agenda and a low emphasis placed on relationship. This looks like I win, you lose. Another way to see it is we're done we're doing it my way. Let's just get the job done, for example. The second style is harmonizing. And in this case, the agenda is low and the relationship is high. So this is characterized by I lose, you win. And you can look at it as whatever you want. Third is avoiding. This is a low agenda and also a low relationship. And we look at this as I lose, you lose, or simply, I don't want to talk about it. Fourth is cooperating, where there's a high agenda and a high relationship. So the emphasis is placed on both agenda and relationship. This is I win, you win. Let's talk about it and work it out. And finally, the fifth is compromising. And we see a medium agenda and a medium relationship here, where we can say we both win some and we both lose some. Or I'm going to accept half of what we want and we're going to move on. Each style is valuable. We often have the impression that some of the styles are less desirable than others. However, this just isn't the case. Each style has a time and place to be effectively used. Whenever I talk about this at Turning Point, I ask when is a good time to use directing as a way to effectively manage conflict, for example. One answer to think about is the command structure during an emergency. You need someone to take control and focus on the agenda, managing the emergency, over everything else, even relationships during that time. So know that while you might have specific styles you lean into when you're in calm or in storm, all of these styles are effective ways to manage different conflicts in different ways. Learning the conflict styles allows you to know not only what your calm and storm styles are, but also gives you the ability to recognize what's happening with others when you're in conflict with them. This is incredibly helpful in working through the inevitable conflicts we face in life. I don't really have any specific tips for this episode. I wanted to introduce the idea that conflict doesn't have to be avoided at all costs, and also present the concept of the Craybill styles, encouraging you to learn more. Your increased understanding will change how you look at conflict and help you to manage conflict more effectively and with more ease. Please reach out to me if you would like some additional support, would like me to come speak to your organization, would like to have your school book me to speak to students, would like to be a guest on the show, or have any feedback you'd like to share. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode on conflict. Remember, conflict is not something to be afraid of or avoid. Now that you understand the causes of conflict, the approaches and the factors of conflict, and conflict styles, you know how to improve your communication skills and are more equipped to lean into conflict for solutions. You got this. I appreciate you sharing these episodes. This podcast is a powerful resource for anyone that is looking to make changes in their lives. So please, please, please help me grow by sharing, liking, and subscribing. There will be new episodes on the second and fourth Wednesday every month. I promise that every episode I'm going to show up and be real to help support you in your individual journey. Please see how to connect with me in the show notes or go to my website at locatecoaching.com. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.